I got onto Twitter a pretty long time ago. Actually, my 7th Twitter birthday is in 6 weeks. Twitter keeps track of those things for you, so you kind of go, wow, how long is that? I was teaching journalism, new media, at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I was commuting from San Antonio to teach. And I saw the Twitter come up during that South by Southwest and said, you know, this is really interesting. And so I watched, and at first it was like really boring. It was people going, I'm getting on the plane, I'm falling asleep, snore. But then I saw KPBS in San Diego was the first one that used it brilliantly by media. There were wildfires going all across Southern California, and people were evacuating. Now, you know, when you're evacuating, you might bring your computer, but you're not watching the computer in the car. But KPBS was sending out Twitters that you can receive, obviously, on your cell phone as SMS. And so they were able to update people with this information in real time. And I said, wow, this is like a fabulous, fabulous tool. So I wrote, and you can find it, it's one of many, many, many Twitter 101s out there in the universe, but I wrote this for my students in the spring of 2008. And every time I go back to it, I'm like, wow, I was a lot smarter then. Because it's a place to listen. And that's something to keep in mind. You go, well, I don't have anything smart to say. It's a place to go to listen. It's a place to hear what other people have to say. And if you, and I'll show you how to, curate a list of people to listen to, then you can learn enormous amounts about Twitter, or enormous amounts about walkability is one of my favorites, enormous amounts about nonprofits. There are tons of different nonprofits that you can watch on Twitter as well. I like to think of this time as very, very, very much like the time of the discovery of movable type. Because up until things like Twitter and Facebook, you couldn't publish your news and information unless you owned the printing presses at the Express News at Avenue E and 3rd Street, or the transmitter at Cans 5 TV, right? Or just like before movable type, you had to be as rich as the Pope to be able to afford people to transcribe books, scribes, right? And then once movable type is discovered, all of a sudden you can not only print your own books, but you can print them in German. You can print, you know, your version of the Bible. And you can read, finally, in your own language. So this is stood the test of time as well. Every one of you is already a correspondent, right? Every one of you, even with your emails, you're a correspondent. But we are all publishers on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and yeah, email too. Obviously, the power of these things and the limited ability of governments to be able to control these things also has meant that we're able to communicate with each other on a very low bandwidth. Twitter, when it comes in on SMS, some of you may remember, after Katrina, people who came to San Antonio, they couldn't use your cell phones to talk, but they could use it to MMS, text messaging, because it takes so much less power. Twitter comes across the same way if you set it up on your phone that way. So even when the government of Iran tried to shut down the internet, Twitter kept coming through, you know? And all sorts of fabulous things happened. Okay, we're going to set up for you, as part of this process, and John Burnham has already started setting up for you, this toolkit at the Big Give essay to help you. I'm assuming that there are some people in this room who would like some help in how to send out Twitters and how to do Facebooks. That toolkit is up there. How many people have hit that page yet? Yeah? Okay.
And keep checking back weekly because stuff's being added.
And I'm going to add this to that page, and I'm going to add some other links of handouts to that page because I made some handouts, but definitely not enough for this crowd. So keep checking back into it. It's really, really good. And I checked into it and looked at John's social media presentation, his Prezi, and I made sure that I'm staying a little bit different than his so that you can go back and look at his Prezi and you're going to learn some different things than you learned from me, and we're not overlapping. Some friends of mine in California, JD Lassica and some friends, set up a website that I encourage you to also visit, and I'll put a link to this on the toolbox as well. It's called Social Bright. Social Bright is aimed at helping nonprofits and other organizations, but first off, nonprofits navigate the world of social media. And so it has things including even definitions of terms. So you can go and say, what does that really mean? Glossaries of stuff, but they're just a terrific resource. And as I said, this is going to be up there as well. Beth Cantor is one of the original social media mavens for nonprofits. She pretty much, well, actually, she's written 3 books. I won't say she's written the book. She's written 3. And this is the latest. It's Not Who You Know, How You Learn. She's written The Networked Nonprofit. She's written Measuring the Networked Nonprofit. So when you get to the point where you really want to start measuring your impact, you know, beyond the first steps, her books are really, really, really good to help with that. Oh, it's showing up nice. You know, as nonprofits, the most important thing to do is to say how you're changing the world, you know, to tell people out there what a difference you're making. And you can still do that inside of the space of a Twitter or with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram in combination. And you can leverage them so that you're telling your story and telling your story on multiple platforms. N10, I'm sorry. Go back here. This is n10.org is the genesis of this this particular bunch of stuff. And again, they're aimed at helping nonprofits with social media. So they've got you in mind when they're publishing everything. This is a longer piece, but it's basically saying what goes on social media is a conversation. It's a conversation. It's not one way. When I said before, you know, we're different because you interact with us. We're different. We're not like television. We're not like radio. It's a conversation. It's a two-way street. And if you are perceived in the Twitterverse to be too much of a one-way street, people will stop listening to you. It's a conversation. So you can do things in multiple different ways, and I encourage you to do them in multiple different ways. Let's start with how many people have a website that you can add a blog to easily, or a post? Okay, cool. At Nowcast SA, it is free for you to come over, sign up, and post a story, and we will edit it behind you and save you from yourself. It doesn't actually get published until we edit it and go through it, but it's absolutely free. So if you have, and I've heard even some national organizations whose initials are like March of Dimes, have really lousy, they can't do anything. They can't post a story. So come on over to Nowcast, post the story. What that gets you is a link, and you can take that link and then put that link into a Twitter. You can take that link and put that link onto Facebook, and you can share that link, or you can put that link actually even into your newsletter, your MailChimp newsletter or something. So it gives you a link. It makes that portable so you can share that story. It's not, I mean, I love the content that we get from nonprofits and from some non-nonprofits, but it's about you being able to then share that story, okay? So once you have that link, it makes it easier for you to post it on your Facebook page, send it out on Twitter, and extend the reach of your content. Okay, now let's go to Facebook. Facebook, years ago when I first came back from Vegas and some folks at San Jacinto Museum came to me and said, would you set up a Facebook page? Because I'd set up a Facebook page for the university back in 2006, and so I was like, bleeding edge on this stuff. So I set up a Facebook page for San Jacinto Museum. And then, the next year, I started Nowcast and set up Nowcast Facebook page. Well, this San Jacinto Museum kind of bumped around for a while. And then I noticed lately, because I get their metrics pushed to me because I'm still listed in as admin, that this inanimate object is kicking my butt. If you look at it, the engagement and the total reach and stuff that they're doing is like way better than our total page likes and total reach. I'm going, what are these guys doing right? And what they're doing at San Jacinto Museum is posting pictures, and so I did what they were doing, okay? I posted a really neat picture of something really cool, and then posted text next to it saying what was going on. Of course, they got the benefit of history buffs in the Alamo and stuff like that, but I've got the benefit of Juani Torres, who was Harlandale High School grad, who went off to Stanford and watched the mayor's State of the City address on our webcast for 3 years, and then this year watched it from her office at Google. And so Juani put this picture up on her Facebook page, and I said, Juani, could we have permission to use it? Because it's difficult on Facebook. Facebook's crazy. It's difficult to share an individual's picture on our Facebook page in this big, beautiful way. So I asked Juani for permission, downloaded the photo, uploaded the photo to Facebook, and then put the words next to it. And we increased our reach and people spending time on it by, from it would have gotten maybe 20 if I just put a link up, as opposed to putting up a photograph. So what's working for that inanimate object, San Jacinto Museum, is something that you can make work for you. What people like a lot, and you'll get that feedback from Facebook. What people like a lot are big, beautiful pictures. So you take a big, beautiful picture and post it, and post some text next to it, and that's terrific. Then you can also say, after you've added the photograph and the text, then you can put in a link that goes back to your story, or goes back to more information, or says, sign up for the event over here. But get that picture in there first, then add that link, so that what you're getting is something that's visually beautiful. If you went over to our site, wrote a story on the site, got the link, and put that link into Facebook, you wouldn't get something this pretty. You would get something much less graphically interesting. So you want to take a picture, go write the story, put the picture up, and then put the link in, give some people something to go through. And you'll see as you enter those things the difference, okay? I'm gonna go back to the conversation on Twitter. On Tuesday, how many people were watching State of the City? Yeah. So the Twitterati, Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Texas, is one of the more fun Twitter accounts to engage with. They were they were watching online, or they were at the table, and they ended up getting a shout out from the mayor. But this is the kind of back and forth that went on, just nutty conversation. Can we butter you up, for a retweet? And of course, Nowcast responded and said, of course you can. Retweet. How many people don't know what that is? Okay, so I see your Twitter, and I then hit a retweet. Let me see if I can pull it up. Can you see it on there? No, you can't. Yes, okay. So you can see it at the top of there, right above the picture, where it says retweet. Okay? So all that does is just send it, and people will see that you retweeted it, but they'll see the big brothers and big sisters photo on it. So we're followed, because we've been on Twitter for a long time, by just under 5,000 people. So about that many people see it every time we either send a Twitter or retweet a Twitter. So frequently, I'll look at a lot of other nonprofits who have hundreds of followers or even less than hundreds of followers, and I'll make sure that I kind of lift up their voice and amplify their voice by retweeting it, so it goes to all the 5,000 people that follow us. And there are times when you might want to ask for your Twitter to be retweeted by somebody who has a really, really big footprint. My San Antonio, their footprint is, I think I saw this morning, about 32,000 Twitter followers. So, you know, if they retweet you, that ends up really magnifying your voice. There's a person that I follow on Twitter, I've followed since I was in Vegas teaching journalism, and his Twitter handle is New Media Jim. He's a NBC cameraman attached to the White House. And very nice guy. He was one of the early adopters on Twitter. And when we very first got onto Twitter, and it was a very small world, I'd put Twitter up on the screen in my classroom and say, hey, everybody, say hi to my classroom. And he would be one of the guys who would say, hey CA students, how you doing? Really nice guy. So when I was back in San Antonio, we were asked by Graham Weston to live stream a chess match. Actually, it was a chess simul, chess master playing 32 people at once. And it was like, we've never done that before, that'd be cool. So, so we webcast it. We got somebody to do like play-by-play real quietly, you know, like golf. And we told the whole people out there, you know, tell us what you want, you know, so that at some point people were, give us a close-up of board 32, you know. And so I sent a Twitter to New Media Jim and said, hey, look what we got our cameras on. Well, I hadn't been paying attention because he's a friend, and, you know, but he has Ben had 46,000 followers on Twitter. So when he said, hey, look at this, we suddenly got traffic from all over the world. We tracked the traffic, and were able to track the traffic, and it came from every continent except Antarctica. So that's the kind of amplification that can happen when people have a lot of Twitters.
New Media Jim, J-I-M?
Yes, I'm sorry. His real name is James Long, I believe. So, and he's very entertaining to follow too. It's fun because you also get a hint from him about where the president's off to. And when I first started following him, it was Bush, and now it's, you know, wheels up on Air Force One, they're off again. So he's tweeting from all over the world usually. There are, and I'm going to put up a handout on ways to measure your impact. Obviously, you're going to measure your impact also by how many people just reply to you, and you can set up your Twitter account so that it pushes that information to your email. So you don't even have to go anywhere, but you can see, oh, so-and-so favorited one of your tweets, or so-and-so replied to your tweets, or so-and-so started following you. And you can get all that information pushed to your email, so you don't even have to do anything to go find it. Topsy is one of the ones that we use, or we've fiddled with many of them to try to get some analytics. And as you can see, on Wednesday, it said, here are the top search items on Nowcast, and it shows that we had, for us, it was a stunning amount of interaction, 157 more interactions. That was huge. It was a really, really big deal for us. Okay, and so there's, I think, oh, I included the wrong one. I apologize. I'll get the right one up on the handout. It's places to go for analytics when you get to that point. This is, again, Beth Cantor without her trademark red cowboy hat. And again, again, it's a little bit more of a elaboration about the conversation. If you think of it as a way to really interact with people. Before we went over to the convention center just now for this thing, I said something to the CPS Energy Twitter account, which is one of my favorite and friendliest Twitter accounts in the world, and very generous, and followed by bazillions of people. But I said, hey, we're coming over, and it was really like I would say it to a friend, So our Twitter account has a voice to it, as opposed to sounding very formal or official. And it also, I don't use our Twitter, I rarely use the Twitter account, and I really am careful about using the Twitter account to do the ask. The ask is not the main thing. It is okay, now we are on this campaign, and this is where we're going, and this is where I need your help. But a majority of the time, it's not doing that ask. Or if it's doing an ask, it's doing a, hey, you should follow this person. They're a really interesting person to follow on Twitter. Or, hey, check out this piece over here. I find myself going through Twitters in the morning and looking for really interesting San Antonio stuff that other people have tweeted and retweeting that, or tweeting it with a comment saying, hey, that's cool. So it's not all about me saying, I want you to do this for Nowcast, or I want you to donate money to Nowcast, but it's about becoming a resource for people in the community so that you're looked at as someone that people want to watch and want to follow because you're giving something back. You're conveying information to people.
So would you say then, in a business context sense, that Twitter is your networking dynamic?
Yeah, for sure, it is. It is, and for instance, lately we've been doing more stuff about education. So I'm really in much closer contact on Twitter with the San Antonio Education Partnership, with P16 Council, with the Student Aid Saturdays and stuff. So there's this whole kind of cluster around that kind of idea, and I'm finding them as I do things. Some of their accounts are really new. Student Aid Saturdays, brand new account. I mean, it's weeks old, and it doesn't have a whole lot of followers, but we're all passionate about education. So it's talking to each other about that. They were the ones who said, the Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, they said, hey, look, he was blogging about the importance of College Signing Week. Well, we've done a College Signing Week in San Antonio, the Education Partnership has for 2 years, and we actually have live streamed parts of it. So I saw San Antonio Education Partnership say, hey, Arne Duncan just did this, and I came back and added it, retweeted it, but added underneath it a link to our YouTube video from last year's College Signing Day, which is all of the college mascots having a dance-off at St. Mary's University on the floor. And I don't know how the Balapeño won the dance-off of all of the college mascots, but that's what happened. So there's that whole network around that whole thing, and everybody's saying, they said, here he is. It's like a volleyball game, Like they do the setup, and I do the setup, and then somebody else goes over the top. I mean, it's can you add to it? Can you amplify? Can you keep that conversation going? Keep the ball in the air? And it's networking. Sure, it's networking. And I learned so much.
I have a question about number 12, because this has happened to me.
Okay.
When people leave comments or retweet you, this happens more on Facebook, because I don't use the Twitter yet, but if you say, they do something and you say thank you, and then they come back and they say something else, and then you say something else. How long do you need to keep that going? Because it can go on, if you get someone who's chatty, it can just keep going, and you spend your time doing that. And
Only,
I just don't know
yeah.
when is enough?
You're absolutely allowed to say, just reply it with a smile. you know? And that almost sometimes says, okay, you know, that's been cool, you know? And you know how to make a smile, right? No? Yes? Okay, okay. All right. So, I mean, you can reply with that, you know, and that kind of says you're being polite and moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. On this previous discussion, will you be talking to us about how to look around and how to find networks, like how to locate people?
Okay, sure. Let me see if I can, let me,
I don't know, for some reason when I'm looking, I get a very limited number of feeds, and so you have to,
okay.
I mean, do you just put in a topic and hope that it pops up?
Okay. This is TweetDeck. It's what I happen to use. There are people who are equally infatuated with Hootsuite and with other things. This is not necessarily better, but it's what I'm used to and what I've used successfully, okay? TweetDeck, among other things, lets you set up different columns for different things. So back in the day, when Twitter first was out, you followed back every person that followed you and followed back, because that was considered the etiquette of the time, right? If someone followed you, you always follow them back. Well, someone followed by like 4,000 people. No one could keep track of 4,000 people. So what I've done, and what this makes it easy to do, is I have created a column called SA Engaged that's just San Antonio. That doesn't include New Media Gym, who I love, but it's just San Antonio. And it's just San Antonio people who are either actively online or who like just got online and I want to, you know, keep track of them. And cool thing about Twitter is that you can follow my list. Okay, so I made that list. You can go follow that list if you want to on your Twitter account. So when you go to nowcastsa.com Twitter account, you'll see lists on the side. Let's see, let me pull it up. There we go. Since this puppy's working for us. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. All right, so now we're in, now we're supposed to be in Twitter.com as opposed to TweetDeck, right? This is the normal interface with Twitter. This is the un-app interface with Twitter. Okay, there's only some times when the lack of backlighting gets me here. Okay. So when you look at the Nowcast account and scroll down, you can see there it is, lists. Thank you. Thank you. I don't hang out on Twitter.com as often as I should to be able to be good. But these are the lists that I follow. And you can just follow SA Engaged if you wanted to, just to see what that's like. And you could follow that list inside of a TweetDeck, so you just had it in one column, you know? And just pop it in there, so you could just watch that SA Engaged or something.
Where on there do you put follow that list?
There it is, subscribe.
Okay.
See it? Okay. Oh, wow. See, I told you CPS Energy is really cool Twitter. Wow. I want one too. Yes, right. Well, actually, and I mean the technicalities of this is that you're actually subscribing to an RSS feed, which is a whole other thing. But so subscribe is actually a technically correct term. That's correct. But you can see before you hit subscribe who all's on there. This is not, and there are some folks around. If you look at, you might be able to look at Big Sisters and Big Brothers and some other active nonprofits in town. and they may actually have a list of nonprofits. I know 80/20 Foundation has a list of nonprofits that you could follow that list if you wanted. And it's not a very long list. It's a curated list too. So you look around at who their lists are.
What was that again?
The 80/20 Foundation, that's Graham and Elizabeth Weston's private foundation. And Lorenzo Gomez runs their Twitter account, and he has curated lists as well to make sure. To be fair, one of the things that I loved from the beginning about Twitter is that it lets me eavesdrop on some of the most intelligent people in the world, or some of the most interesting people in the world. So that's what that first line is, eclecticos. I finally, was like, I can't listen to 5,000 people. How do I whittle it down to the people who I really, really, really care about almost every word they say? I don't want to miss it because they're that interesting. And so I set up this thing that I call eclecticos that is from all sorts of different places, but it's people who, by and large, I really, really care about what they say. So you can also set it up so that you know, and this is terrifically important for all of us. You really need to know what people are saying about you. And we hope that most of the time what people are saying about you is a happy thing. But you can better believe that CPS and other folks have this set up so that they can do a really fast intervention when what people are saying about them is not a happy thing, right? So TweetDeck allows you in multiple ways. So you see its mentions and notifications, they're slightly different. I'm never quite sure why they're slightly different. That's why I've got them both there, so that I see everything that people are saying about us. Most of the time, it's because I want to be able to say, hey, thanks. But it's also, particularly when we're live streaming, if somebody says, hey, Nowcast, the audio sucks, I need to go fix it. so it's really important. Hi. Send back a Twitter that says smiles. The other thing, this is really, really cool. You said networks. It's even more powerful than networks. So, let's go over here. So I have some things that I'm really interested in. I am a geek, so I'm interested in civic technology. And that's called a hashtag. The tic-tac-toe sign in front of the word. You can set up a column searching on that hashtag on anything you want. And if it's out there, it'll just pull it into you. So you could set it up on nonprofits. You could set it up on the Big Give and see the Big Give in all cities, not just San Antonio. What else do you care about? Somebody tell me one. What do you care about? What are you curious about following?
Drug abuse intervention.
Okay, let's check. See what comes up. So in the search field, I throw in drug abuse, and you see what comes up and what the popular things are that people in that community are using, right? So it's drug abuse, Florida rehab, right? I mean, there's an interesting network of people. And so this is terrific. It just says add column. Yeah, okay. Boom, and you've got it set up. And you can watch it, and then you can decide if you think it's really useful, or if you, I think that was following those kinds of hashtags helped me find other people that I was interested in listening to. And it helps me get out of my echo chamber, right? So I'm not just listening to, progressives from here, right? I'm listening to, hey, you know what? Here's somebody whose political ideology is like on the other end of the spectrum, but we both really like this, you know? And that makes my brain much healthier than just being involved in an echo chamber.
Excuse me. If you have questions, we have a live mic in the rear since
I'm
this is
sorry.
being broadcast today.
I'm sorry.
This is streaming out, so just use the microphone in the rear so you can hear the question.
I should have repeated the question. I'm sorry. I know better than that. Don't let me do that again, guys.
I have just one question. The name of this application is TweetDeck.
He said he has one question. The name of this application is TweetDeck. Yes, it is. And you can go to tweetdeck.com. See in the top of that URL. And I encourage you to get the kind that plays inside of your browser, which is what I've done. There is a different version of TweetDeck that is on Adobe Air. It's a standalone TweetDeck, and it's a real memory hog, and you don't need that. And you can get it in here. Actually, in my phone, I've been through several of them, and right now I'm using a different one in my phone, and it's Tweetcaster, because and part of the deal is it lets me be Charlotte Ann sometimes, and it lets me be Nowcast sometimes, and keeping track of that is important. Messing that up can be embarrassing. Just saying. And other friends of mine, particularly who are helping out small nonprofits, have as many as 3 or 4 accounts that they're taking care of, and you can do that inside of these guys. So it helps you be able to have multiple personalities. Oh, this is a Galaxy X3. It's an Android. It's able to do an awful lot. Its battery sucks. The new model S4 battery does not suck as much, but the functionality, to me, it's a really, really good phone because it allows me to multitask. That's still one of those things that I think iPhones have a challenge with, but I don't know. But I can, when I'm on the phone with somebody, I can put it on speakerphone and then go do my email and do stuff like that. So that's important to me, but I should probably slow down. Any other searches you want me to do?
Senior arts education.
Cool. Let's try art first. Oh, wow. Okay, let's go back to just arts education and see. There you go. That looks interesting. So you say add column, and here it goes all the way down there. No, it's not doing it. It's not pulling it over. Another really important thing. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. What's your question?
I know this is, or my understanding, this will be the second year that the Big Give takes place in San Antonio, correct? No? This is the first year. So we really don't have examples of how other nonprofits have started to use Twitter. I mean, I follow the Big Give SA, but I was kind of curious as to how any of my fellow nonprofits intend to use Twitter to sort of cultivate, get people donating. That's kind of where we're at. I want to know how to use Twitter to sort of start getting constituents excited to donate. I mean, is it more just introducing ourselves to different people? Should we be following other nonprofits? And handling that?
So, one of the things that I think that's going on with the Big Give is that we're trying to get all of you guys into the online Twitterverse, right? Particularly folks who haven't been in the online Twitterverse, get you in there now, so that we can kind of build up to that Big Give, and that you can build your community now, and so that when we get to the point of saying, you know, we want you to focus on this, and there are on that terrific page sample tweets from John, but she was saying, how do we build, you were saying, how do we build up the community?
Yeah, I would just like, you know, if you happen to have examples of how, you know, a nonprofit has used Twitter to just sort of build up that community. What do you suggest? Or
That's a great question. So I think a good example, and one that's not necessarily the Big Give, but it's another organization I work with here in town called San Antonio Christian Dental Clinic. And they just started their Twitter account, I guess, back in September, and we're sort of facing that challenge as well. How do you start building up an audience connection when you don't necessarily have that? And one of the first things they did, and it's not necessarily, there's no quick gap fix where it's going to happen overnight, but the first thing they did was started to follow other, like a lot of the dentists in the area and the state and the country that all tweeted a lot. And then you begin interacting, just sort of having a conversation like you would anybody else. They post something interesting, talk about it, share it, repost their stuff a lot. Because if you're spreading it, then they're much more likely to sort of re-engage with you as well. And so that's how we got started, was by working with those individuals first, identifying them, and then kind of following them, and then they would start thinking sharing our material. And then once other people, and since they were much larger influencers, having several thousand followers themselves, and at the time, you know, we maybe had like 20 or 30, it was a much larger reach for us, because if they then tweeted us out, we even asked a couple of them, hey, you know, can you give us a shout out for this? You know, this is the work we're doing, and they said, yeah, absolutely. And so they sort of broadcasted us out to their partners, and that then gave us a lot more follow and a lot more pull. And then from that point, you just sort of continue to do that same kind of thing. And a good way to identify people that are maybe more likely to follow your organization, or go through the list of people who follow you currently, or who you start to engage with, and then see who's following them and see who they're following. And those are also people that are within a sphere that you may want to engage with as well. So the people that are following them are also likely to follow you if you're putting out similar material, because that means that they're looking for that. And the people that they're following are good, because those are people that they see as influencers. And so if they see them as influencers and you begin reaching out to them, then there's a higher likelihood that you'll be able to pull a much larger audience back in. And so with that organization in particular, they had gone, I think, from September to January or so, they'd gone from basically 0 to about 450 followers by doing that. And that dental community is not an ultra large community, and that's where the whole idea of quality over quantity comes in. Those are the people that we needed to reach out to, because they're people who have contacts to volunteers, to dental supply chains. And so it's going to look and feel a little different for you. And so now we're starting a new sort of phase to that, and that's engaging more within the San Antonio community. If that helps.
Yes.
Say we. Can you quantify that just a little bit?
Sorry, I have a tendency to refer to we as the organization, but it's me. I was the one that was posting on their behalf. But me and the executive committee were sort of outlining that process together. So that's why I refer to it as the organization as a whole. They also have access, but I run their social media, so.
So again, he's one of the people that I refer to, like me, who has multiple personalities, right? But there's a strategy to it, which is you look around and you say, okay, I'm going to see who you can. I mean, start with people that you're familiar with that are in your fields, or start with people in nonprofit and look who the Big Give is following. Look who the 80/20 Foundation is following. Look who Big Brothers and Big Sisters is following. I mean, other nonprofit agencies. I mean, you can look up nonprofit agencies through the search function in Twitter, and actually the Google search function in Twitter is excellent in finding people and finding organizations that may have a different name than on Twitter than they actually have in real life. So, that's a good way to ferret them out, and then look at who they're following. Look at who they interact with.
I actually have two questions. I'm going to pose both of them, and you answer them in whatever order you think is reasonable. First of all, it appears to me that you think Twitter is much more important than Facebook, at least in the time that we've spent here. Twitter has been the predominant issue, and you can think about that. The other thing is, when you're doing those hashtag searches that you were showing, was that being done in TweetDeck, or was that being done in Twitter? Where was that going to look? How are those lashed together?
TweetDeck is an application.
It runs over Twitter?
It runs in your browser that you can use to manage Twitter.
Okay. So the
Twitter-
searches are really going out to Twitter?
Right,
At
right.
large. Okay.
The searches are going to Twitter. This is just a management tool. And I don't think that Facebook is less important. I think that it is also important. I think Facebook, well, it is, and it also sometimes frustrates us immeasurably because Facebook changes the rules every once in a while. And the only way you find out about that is by other users, not from Facebook. And it's really frustrating to figure out, oh, gee whiz, they just did this. And because of that change that they did 6 months ago, now all of that work we did to build up our number of users doesn't really pay off.
If we
Because
have limited time and limited resources, would you suggest directing it toward Twitter more than Facebook, or vice versa?
It's two different platforms, and
Right.
you can connect them. You can connect them if you really,
Right.
really, it will frequently look connected. So you want to try to not let that audience think that they're the
Being
stepchild.
double-dipped.
And I see it the most when some Twitter account, I see them saying, uploaded a photo to Twitter, to Facebook, uploaded a photo to Facebook, uploaded, jeez, you just don't tell me that. So it's really, if you can possibly do it, do separate posts, because it's a separate kind of thing, and the audience appreciates it separately.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I'd like to direct
Yes.
a question or two more.
I'll hold it right there.
I'd also like to pick up on the questions regarding Facebook and Twitter. We've just really gotten started in these areas regarding our organization. We have a very small organization, and it's a very small board of 3 members. And we have our director and executive director, our house manager, and I'm a volunteer. And basically what we've concluded at this point is that there's a clear demarcation line between Twitter and Facebook. And Twitter is doing a lot of the discovery work and building relationships from our organization level. And what we've kind of concluded and decided for ourselves regarding Facebook is that Facebook has got to take on the personality of our organization. Facebook has got to communicate to the community at large what it is that we're all about. You know, in our case, we're providing social services. We're providing care for men and women who have suffered traumatic brain injuries. We've got to tell their story to the community on an ongoing basis through pictures. Okay? The good side, the negative side, and the positive side of what goes on at Rainbow House on a daily basis. So that's Facebook. So it's very clear to us the role that Facebook plays. Twitter is just another among several tools that we need to use to sustain those operational requirements. And that's what really drives my question regarding the resource side of this. I would guess that you have probably a very strong IT background, and well, both of you actually. And the young man in the dental community, I think your background is strong IT, and you may be very strongly involved in directing the activities of the organization that you're involved with. Just a guess, I may be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, don't lose sight of the fact that both of these platforms are ways that you can tell the world how you're changing the world. And that's absolutely essential to this whole thing. I say Twitter is much more of a conversation. Facebook is also a big conversation place to have that. And when you put up those stories, when they're shared on Facebook by your friends, that is amplifying your message. I mean, it's hugely important. So I don't think that you should at all ignore the, as you said, I mean, that you have a great platform here to share how you're changing the world, and focusing on that as a beautiful platform, and it's prettier, and in getting people to like it and share it is very, very important, and it's a great opportunity for you.
Two things. One, my background is actually in theological studies and art history. So it's not IT, yeah. But I totally understand what you're saying, and that tends to be the fear with all of these platforms, is that there is this. It's very different. It's very fast paced. And how do I do this if I don't have time? How do I manage these things that seem complex? And so part of that is really finding the platform that you feel most comfortable with. And if Facebook is that platform, like by all means, if you're having success, then like really focus that time and energy on that. I would always recommend wouldn't you say doing well one first before really building in that second component. And only at that point that you start to become comfortable, really kind of working that new, beginning to test the waters with that new platform and working that in. Each one, and we talked about this at the last session, each one of the major platforms has a different audience. And so a lot of it's about identifying who you want to speak with. If you want to speak with, like, if you're an organization that wants to speak with business executives, then LinkedIn is the direction to go. If you're an organization that wants to promote and tell a story through pictures, then yeah, absolutely Facebook. If you're a news organization, such as Nowcast, Twitter is an absolutely excellent resource for that because it's happening all the time. And the thing is that there's all these, and I don't know if, since I walked in late, I don't know if you had a chance to show this, we have that toolkit, and a lot of that and a lot of what we've been posting are infographics and things that really try to distill down the tactics to make it as simple as possible for you to spend as little time as possible integrating yourself into those networks. And so I would just say that the very first way to do a lot of these are if you do want to make a step to a second platform and you are uncomfortable with it, just sort of retweet basically what's been happening by other organizations. Whatever the Big Give is posting, repost that, and that gives you sort of that legwork is being done for you. Yeah.
And you can also on Twitter just link back to the Facebook post, you know. So that's a good thing too.
We're all three right now.
Right.
LinkedIn, and Twitter,
Right.
plus our own web.
So it sounds like you guys are on top of all of it.
And I didn't mention LinkedIn, but LinkedIn it's really, really, really important that you don't have to be active on LinkedIn, but you've got to have a presence on LinkedIn, because that's the place that many news organizations go to say, is this person for real or not, right? If you have a good, solid resume, or your organization is well represented on LinkedIn, then that really elevates your standing as a credible member of the community, business community. Sorry. I'm sorry, there's another question back there.
So when the time comes to do the Big Give Day, how do you recommend asking people for money after you spend all this time what's the way to do that without driving them away, having them unfollow you, unlike your page, and all that?
Sorry, I don't think Charlotte just asked a question if I identified myself. I'm the coordinating consultant for the Big Give, so I'm helping Scott run that activity. And so to answer your question, the whole idea is that the Big Give is in a sense promoting itself. It is a giving day, so people know that what we're doing is building up to a day where this is going to occur, that it's a giving holiday. And so it's not so much of like an aggressive, hey, now give me your money sort of thing, like we've had this. Think of them as two things that are separate but also linked. So the building the goodwill, the social networking is an aspect that will continue long after the Big Give ends, and will cycle back around to the next year. And think about the day of the event as an opportunity to sort of piggyback on almost a giving holiday attitude that's going on in the city, and reminding your followers that the reason that you want them to give on that particular day, as opposed to say 5 months from now, is because there's an opportunity for their money to be matched by prize dollars and grants. And so that's sort of doing the ask for you in a lot of ways. So what we've found with other communities is that a large number of people are first-time givers, and they're going to give a very minimum amount. They're going to give maybe $10. Like that tends to be, I think Austin found their average was 35 or so. And sorry, it was about 35 or so. And so they weren't getting a large number. I mean, they weren't getting a large gift per person, but they're getting a lot of small gifts. And so the idea was then to take those new small donors, organizations were getting 20 or 30 new people who had never given, who are clearly interested in what you're doing, and then cultivating that for the rest of the year, turning them into volunteers, turning them into people who want to come back and learn more. And so those are two linked things, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I know that.
Well, I want to thank our presenters today for being here at Urban 15. Especially would like to thank the people who are in the room who came to participate in this workshop. So give yourself a round of applause as well.